Hello, everyone. Welcome back to the OneTalk podcast. You're here with your host, Ryan McCarthy. And today we are joined by Anna Grace. Anna is a mentor, writer, counselor, and teacher. Her purpose is to empower women to live a heart-centered life. And within today's episode, you'll understand astrology more on a deeper level. You'll understand how it works, the purpose behind it, the intention, how to get your readings done, and what it's all about. I learned so much more about astrology within this episode. And also another cool thing is that Anna actually did my reading for this episode, and she shares it live for my first ever time hearing it during the end part of this episode. So I'm really keen for you all to check out what my reading is, but also just to be able to understand astrology more. In other news, if you could please leave this podcast a rating or subscribe to the YouTube channel, it means so much, just helping this podcast grow. If you could share it as well, it means so much just in terms of growth. Also, OneTalk merch is also available, so check out the link in the bio of this episode. Check out the OneTalk merch and just support it, and I appreciate everyone's support and listening to the podcast. But without further ado, let's welcome Anna. Welcome, Anna. How are you?
Good, thanks. Really happy to be here.
I'm glad that you're jumping on as well. I think, with the alignment of me and you and the work that we do, but also seeing that we're both Virgos and we're both in this astrology thing. And for someone like yourself who has a deep understanding on this, I think it's a really cool time that this aligned and came together.
Yeah, it is. It's really incredible. I love astrology and how if you're in alignment and really following your purpose and your soul purpose, which I'm sure we'll talk a little bit about, you will find that that's how you start to live life. It is, noticing the synchronicity and the timing and alignment, and, you're really, really stepping into who you truly are, your authentic self. And that's why I absolutely love astrology, because it is an insight into almost like a blueprint or a cheat sheet into who you really are. And I think we're on the eve of the Pisces full moon, which is no surprise because you have your South node in Pisces and your North node in Virgo. So your purpose is Virgo.
Yeah, wow.
And yeah, and here I am, this is why we may have come together to speak about astrology on this particular day. And so there is no coincidences in my world. So I'm sure we'll talk more about all of your Virgo placements, because it's really fascinating. And I think it's great for everyone else to understand a little bit more about you as well, and your purpose. So I'm looking forward to, talking a bit about that later.
It's definitely that align with you there around the coincidence side of things, because I'm currently reading a book called The Celestine Prophecy. And within that book, it talks a lot about energy and coincidences, and it's probably a fantastic book.
That is so crazy because I've just finished reading it.
No way.
Yeah. And I've already read it before, but for some reason I had to go back.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
That's unreal.
Yeah, like literally a few days ago.
Yeah, because someone recommended to me, and I was like, something I've been telling myself I need to read for like the last 3 months. And I eventually just picked it up like maybe last week. I've just dived into it and I'm just in love with it. So yeah, there you go.
Yeah, well, there you go. There's a reason why that had to come through.
And with astrology as well, I believe like for people that are into it deeply, or for the people that have a surface understanding of it, I feel like we've all at some point downloaded the astrology app, read our birth chart on there and related to it. And I feel like everyone has somewhat of an understanding of what it is, but I'd like to hear from your perspective. Like, what is astrology to you?
Yeah, to me, it's definitely about our birth chart at the core, and understanding who we were when we were first born. So we have chosen this incarnation and that particular astrological makeup for a reason. And so every single lifetime that we have had, we choose our wounds and our lessons, and sometimes that will show up in our astrology. So I really love it from the, I suppose, the soul's evolution point of view, but not everyone will use astrology in that way. But it's definitely a big part of my work is understanding more about, soul purpose, like a deep, meaningful fulfillment that you can offer society. How can you can contribute? And I think there is obviously the superficial, surface version of astrology, which is like the star sign. And not everyone resonates with that because there's so many layers to astrology. And yes, I understand not everyone will be able to, I suppose, read all about it and understand it to that depth. But if you are looking at your sun sign only, it will only show you one part of you. And there's essentially 12 parts of you because we have 12 planets at the time of birth that are in a particular position that gives us our makeup. And then you add the layer of the houses. So it's even more specific. So, you have to really have a birth chart done to understand what the system is all about. And, we could talk about the actual origins and the history of astrology, but there's no, you can't really explain how you, like when you talk to someone and you've never ever met them before, and it is so spot on, and they always like, oh my gosh, you really truly know me, everything about me from that image. It's just so incredible. And I have done many, many charts, and every single time everyone resonates so deeply with it because it's like they are being truly seen and validated and given permission to be like, oh yeah, you see me and you understand me, even if they, there may be parts of their chart that they kind of don't resonate with. And that's the real good stuff, because that's where they may not be leaning into who they truly are. They could have, come from a particular childhood, or the conditioning has shaped them in a certain way. And so they see these little gaps and they think, oh, well, why am I like not very good at speaking in front of crowds? Or why, why am I obsessed with learning and studying? Well, that's a big part of me. So yeah, I think it just gives us a really good insight into how we can grow and how we can evolve and kind of truly be us. And that's I suppose it's just so beautiful to watch when people get lit up and go, wow, that really truly is me. I hope that answered that question. That's that's definitely my perspective on astrology and how it can be like empowering. It's all about empowerment and not using it as kind of like a, scare tactics and catastrophizing. And the collective movements is obviously a big part of everything, but it's not something that I really strongly focus on. I want it to be, positive, empowering, and as well insight into how we can change or challenge ourselves.
It comes down to like the intention behind it as well. Like you said, if you use it as something that is empowering, but also it seems like there's an element to it that helps you connect to your authentic self.
Yes, definitely. And that's probably the most important thing, because I think people can get lost and they don't really, they can use it as a tool to remember who they are and rediscover who they are. And that, often happens on the spiritual awakening journey of like, okay, well, I did all those things for all these other people, but what do I actually like? And what do I really want to do?
Definitely, because I feel like when we grow up in the world, we're influenced by other people's values and beliefs, and most of it can be goodwill, like it's from the schools, it's from parents and whatnot. But then we get to a certain age where we have to strip all the values and beliefs that other people have implemented onto us and really look at ourselves in like an authentic light and see who that person really is. Did you have a moment that made you want to reflect on that in your own life and made you want to connect deeper?
Yes, definitely. It probably wasn't that long ago. It was probably about 3 or 4 years ago. So I think it was just a point in my life where I hit the highest level of stress that I could have ever experienced. And, when you're in the pot, the boiling pot, you don't really realize that you're so stressed. It just kind of slowly rises. And yeah, I was like full-time teaching. I had a 2-year-old, and my ex-husband and I were running a business, running a restaurant. And it was just really, really intense. And I suppose I reached the point where I was like, I don't want to do this anymore. And who am I really without the labels of like being the teacher, being a mum, which was really hard, and I suppose being codependent in a relationship that was not really serving me. So I had to really step away. And then in that time of like reflection, I had to, find who I really was without those labels.
Most definitely. And that's one of the biggest challenges I find people experience with identity, that feeling of lost and where to go or who am I really. And was this when you had these feelings coming up or when this shift happened in your life, was this your first time going to astrology and really understanding what it was, or were you aware of what it was beforehand?
Yes, well, as most people kind of say, that there were times in my life where that was all I really was interested in, but I shut it off. So when I was really young, like I do tarot as well. I'm highly intuitive, empath. Like I call myself a modern mystic because it is truly lots of different tools that I use. And I always had tarot cards as a young person. Definitely helped me as a teenager, and moving through a lot of pivotal moments in my life. Went and got astrology done. Always saw it as like so fascinating, but of course, just kind of shut it off or blocked it out. And it wasn't until I went to like a lady in the area, and she was so, most astrologers in society that like actually do chart readings are quite elderly, and there wasn't really many people around that, someone to teach me, for example. So no, I never really pursued it until recently. And the gift of Instagram can really help you to open up other worlds, and came across a mentor, and that's when I started to learn astrology and then also become a coach. And it truly was just so fascinating, and it was like my hobby. And then I just started reading charts for every single person in my life. I was like, what's your astrology? Let's talk about it. Even the people that didn't want to. So I just practice and practice and practice until I felt that I could actually make it a business.
How beautiful is it when you have something that lights you up so much, you're able to share with other people, but then turn it into a way that can support your life as well. Like, it's such a
Yeah,
beautiful thing to find in life.
truly, truly is. Yeah.
Yeah. And they feel like being able to educate people on astrology and what it is part of your sole purpose as well, especially because you've got a podcast too.
Yes, and I think that's why it's really beautiful to see your chart and how it resonates with speaking and communication. And I think that was part of my chart that I had to lean into a lot more, because I have a lot of like Virgo is essentially on the sidelines. We want to we want to be known for doing nice things and kind things, and dedicating ourselves to a cause, but we don't always want to be in the spotlight.
Speaking to
And
me.
yeah. And so, of course, a podcast is like, wow, that's perfect, because you can speak about your heart-centered, soulful, like, the magic, but you don't always have to be like in the glitz and glamour. And I suppose now in our society, we can kind of have, you can be influential without being, a Hollywood movie star, for example. But it doesn't, it doesn't really go with Virgos are a bit like, I just want to be known for the goodness that I bring and the contribution, but I don't want my name up in lights. And so I actually do have my Mercury is in Leo, and it's one of those placements that I always thought, oh, I'm not a Leo. No, Leos are they're a show off, like they're the entertainer. And they're up themselves. Like that's was my perception, because I actually should have been stepping into it more. And so that's what we can see. Like people often trigger us because part of them is who we want to be. And so, of course, my Mercury and Leo, and then I have, just the sense of community. So 11th house is all about like sharing with people, like-minded people, and the podcast is perfect for that. It's like building community for a cause, and speaking your truth. So you also have Mercury in Virgo, so speaking about causes that really mean a lot to you.
Yeah, and then being able to have that Virgo side of it by bringing guests onto the podcast and putting a bit of spotlight onto them, and then just contributing to that as well. That's what I find.
Yes, exactly. Which is what I really lean to as well, is having that shared conversation. And I know a lot of people do like individual like episodes and so on, and it doesn't. I can talk at the wall, but it's definitely not as exciting or fun for me.
Yeah, I'm the same. I can talk at the wall. Like if I'm around people face to face, I can continuously talking. But when I'm on a podcast, I like to like go back and forth and like to ask a lot of questions and stuff like that.
Yeah, yeah, because it's like that Mercury in Virgo is yeah, it's just like it's just sharing. It's sharing, talking about something that's meaningful, but sharing. And I think, you have so much Virgo in your chart. So there's no surprise that you may your mission is probably like to serve, to help.
Most definitely. That's my mission.
Yeah. This is the Virgo archetype. And I think yeah, sometimes like doing a normal job, it doesn't always allow you to really serve like effectively and contribute.
That makes so much sense. And like before we go on to my chart and stuff like that, I
Yeah.
want to ask a couple of questions about yourself. Like
Yeah.
being someone that teaches and supports people as well and does coaching for astrology, where do you go to get your charts done? Is it something that you can actually do yourself, or do you go to someone to seek guidance?
Yes, well, originally I had a lot of mentors really, but I had Natalia Benson. She's an astrologer, empowerment coach, and that's really where it was my go-to. And I learned a lot through her of like how to use astrology as a coaching modality to understand people. And it's a blueprint. And even just like a one-on-one session, if I understand their astrology, I can just go straight into like more of a deeper conversation without having to do kind of talk therapy. That's kind of how I see it. And I actually do work in with past lives as well, and see things like this. It's as my Scorpio placements. I love to go into deeper conversations, and so of course, I do a lot of courses or learning around these modalities to just continue to kind of add more depth to, yeah, to what I can offer and how I can serve and how I can help people.
How often do you like to get your charts done for yourself?
Well, because of the birth chart is just that snapshot at birth. You are always going to be able to kind of discover more about yourself through that. But I can do that personally. I don't need to outsource for that.
Yeah.
But if I am kind of concerned about like transits and how the collective is going to impact me, then I can do more research around that. So talking about like the Pisces full moon, which is today, that may impact me. But because it's a system, it's kind of like I don't need to outsource anymore. I understand it enough to, yeah, to kind of unpack my own chart and see how the collective movements are actually going to impact me.
That's beautiful. Like when you get to a point in life where you know the tools that you can implement within yourself, so you can constantly pick things out, like you said before, when you know something was a resistance, you're able to identify it to use it as a strength. But that's because you use
Yeah.
time to invest and to learn the tools, which is great.
Yes, yeah, definitely. And then I think you can always come back to it, which is that's what it's the gift that keeps on giving because you continually, I suppose, you're evolving and changing. And so you're just like, oh, well, now I can see I'm really resonating with that position in my chart of what else can I do to kind of lean into some of those challenges.
Have you ever read a book called The Gene Keys?
Yes,
Yeah, that's
yes,
an
I love.
amazing book. That was
Yeah,
yeah, the reason I bring that up because that just talks about like the gifts, the cities, and also
Mm.
what the purpose of them all are. Now you can break them down. Now each one can add benefits and value to your life. And then when you're talking about what you're talking about just then, just remind me of the gene keys.
Yeah, it's very similar in a sense of yeah, just like a blueprint, something that you can use to understand yourself deeper. And I know human design is very similar. It's all adding layers of depth to understand yourself.
Mm.
Yeah.
I
And
think,
sorry.
oh, sorry, you go.
I was just gonna say also with astrology, there and not all astrologers will kind of focus on this, but there are wounds that we carry from our previous lives.
Yeah.
And that's what really appeals to me when I do past life regression. And so I suppose maybe that starting point for me to dive into astrology was actually a stepping stone to understand more about what do we bring to the table when we first come into this world. um, we're not just like starting out. We've had many patterns and habits and situations and contracts that we bring through into the next lifetime. And astrology is kind of, it's, I suppose, how we are choosing this incarnation, but we can also see a lot about um, why did we go through all these other things, and how can we kind of go back to our truth, like our true soul origin. And of course, it's everyone that we meet, it's always the lessons, it's a gift or it's a challenge, and we can see it that way. And I suppose it does help for us to see, okay, well, that wound is in that particular position. I might find it really hard to do this.
Yeah.
And there's like no surprise that I actually have one of my wounds. It's in Gemini, which is the speaker. So when I started my business, like a challenge for myself would be to do a podcast. And so I worked my way up to that particular challenge, knowing full well that's something that it's been a challenge for me in past lives of speaking my truth, particularly speaking my spiritual truth. And that's a whole another thing.
Talking
Because
about, oh,
yeah,
sorry.
because we've potentially been persecuted because of speaking about spiritual concepts. And so, of course, our society now, we feel safe, but are we really safe? Particularly with social media, where we're sharing something perhaps quite personal, or will someone come and, I don't know, judge me or whatever. And so it brings up these potential wounds or like fears of rejection, and then that can show up in your business. So it's like you're healing every single time you speak.
So yeah, because you get more of an understanding of yourself every time. If you have that awareness to it.
Yeah. And then it's like, it's also the opportunity. So you're gifting people an opportunity to speak, which they may have not before. And so it's got this domino impact.
Yeah, most definitely. And like talking about past lives, what is there a difference between, let's just say, when we're in this life that we're in now and we have a rebirth in the current life, is the one before the rebirth a past life, or is a past life more so before this world we're in today? And it's the before that generationally. Like, what could
Yeah,
you break that down for us, please?
yeah, that's a good question. It's before this human experience. So when we are having like an ego death or a shift, or it feels like a timeline change, or a dramatic shift, and you're kind of like, hang on a minute, what's going on? Because things are so different. No, I believe that that's not considered in my view. It's not a past life. It's just previous to our birth. And we don't always. It's a it's a difficult concept to kind of get your head around, and some people will be a bit skeptical to it. But the more you kind of dive into it, the more you realize that there are certain habits and fears and phobias and all these things that we have that are heavily influenced by those previous lives.
It makes so much sense because sometimes we'll be doing things on autopilot, but we don't even know why we had those habits in the first place. We're just doing them.
Yeah. yeah, so why do we have an irrational fear of snakes or something? It's like,
Yeah.
where do these things come from? But I think the most important thing is the contracts that we have with people, and why we are, why we meet certain people, because everyone has a very important role to play.
Yeah, I believe everything that happens on a day to day, especially seeing other people, we interact with them for a purpose. There's something deeper than just, oh, I just saw Johnny down the street. I feel
Yeah.
like every little thing, whether it's the tiniest little scent of purpose, but I feel like everything has something that's going to align us to push us in a direction, whether backwards or forwards, just whatever we choose to do.
Yeah, definitely. And there is fate, but there is also free will. So we can alter our experience. And most of the time we're repeating the same stories.
Yeah, yeah,
And we don't realize, we're like, oh, okay, this has happened like 29 times. Yep. The same, and then often even the same people will come into our story until we are here to like break the cycle, which I see a lot in the collective right now and since COVID, of this sense of changing the direction that we take, or perhaps releasing people from our lives, and yeah, just doing things that we really want to do, because that's part of that, the consciousness kind of rising,
yeah.
and people waking up. Yeah.
Yeah, I feel like the one good thing that came from COVID was that I feel like there was a massive spiritual awakening that came out the other side of it. And
Yeah.
like a lot of people in my circle or in my life that were never, I wouldn't say they were never, but they never expressed to me, more should I say, that they were more insightful or thinking more deeply on a conscious level or spiritual level. But since that situation happened, it feels like there's a massive awakening happening right now, which is leading me to my question around the blueprint you're talking about. And with the blueprint, is there something that you also share with your children? Because you believe that we should be learning about these things as early as possible? Because I know a lot of people get to like a certain age, they have a midlife crisis, or they get to a certain age, they have an identity crisis. Do you believe this is something that we should be taught at a young age?
Definitely. And I think that was part of my initial mission, because I'm a teen, so I teach teens. And straight away I was like, I needed this when I was a teenager. Like, where where was the person that was, going to mentor me? Why did I have to wake up at like, 33? Yes, I think it is very, very critical, but how we actually do that is going to be challenging. But everyone is seeking, kind of a blueprint or a map to understand yourself. So yeah, we should be teaching these tools to young people, to even younger than teens.
Mm.
So I do teach some mums about how you can kind of interact with your children, and strengths and weaknesses, and how you can really help through your communication. Highly, highly important as a parent. And because sometimes there'll be particular placements, like I know my son, he has like Sagittarius and Aries. They just want to do what they want to do. So there's really no point in pushing things too much, or creating some too much structure, for example. So I'll give him two options. I'll say, would you like to wear this or this? And he feels like he's a little bit in control, that he's making that choice. And I feel like it's very helpful for me as a parent. So yes, like
Yeah.
as young as possible, but I suppose you could start by sharing with parents, and they teach their own children.
Mm.
But yeah, I can't really see it how the school system would integrate it into their curriculum or whatever.
Yeah, like you
But
said,
yeah,
I think it's important for the parents, for the ones to understand this, and that just made me really interested as well, because I'm not a father yet. I would love to be one day. It's a big goal of mine. So one thing I am on the journey of at the moment is just collecting tools and information so I can be the best parent I can be when that moment arises. And what you said just there was that it's good for the people or the young people in general to understand themselves and their identity, but it's just as important for the parents to understand who their young person is or their child is at the core as well, so they know their child's needs.
Yeah,
Mm.
definitely. And I think, you're actually getting to young people before they have too much conditioning or heavy life situations that can sometimes weigh them down, because we do have a mold that we kind of want kids to be in the school system. So what about accepting everyone's differences? And so like the astrological blueprint does that. It shows us, okay, this is a unique unique person, and there's no one else like me, and
Mm.
that's okay.
100%. That's great, actually.
Yeah, that exactly. And like, because there's so much more to it. And I actually have spoken a lot to my students in the past about like and they're always so fascinated about it, because it's learning about themselves.
Yeah.
I mean, of course, teens are very egotistical and they love to learn about themselves, but how can we actually, I suppose, help them to follow their path or their soul purpose from a younger age? It's a really good topic.
I currently at the moment go to schools and run groups and programs and teach like teenagers at high schools. And when I show them breath work and meditation, there is a stigma there. There is a big misconception. Like I understand because I was a teenager once. If someone told me breath work at that time, like, what are you doing?
Yeah,
But like
yeah.
there is like that massive misconception around meditation and breath work. And do you feel like around astrology as well, there is any misconceptions or misinterpretations of what it is?
Yes, definitely. And this is what's, I suppose, really uh, frustrating, I suppose, because it is essentially a profiling tool.
Mm.
And we can talk about personality tests and, do other things like they often do tests in year 10 to help them for career choices, for example. But yes, this is a perfect opportunity to really go deeper than those kind of personality tests. And I that's how I began, is doing teen workshops too. So there's another synchronicity between us. Um, Funny, I laugh, but obviously it's not coincidental.
No, not at all. Not after the Celestine prophecy, that's for sure.
Yeah, I know. I'm still shocked by that one. Yeah, but I think if we can teach them, the tools younger, yes, then there will be less awakening at middle age. There are astrological transits that we go through, which are, I suppose, like the Saturn return, you may have heard of. It's very popular in the media. And then we also have Jupiter return, like we have particular age like patterns. And so, I suppose that's why I've recently been through a lot of shifts and changes at 36, because that's the Jupiter return. And a lot of people will say, well, it's like age 27 to 30, that's around the time of the Saturn return. And a lot goes on at that time, like big changes.
That's
So
coming
I
up for
know,
me.
yeah, is it? Well, I was picking up on that, I think. So Saturn return is for example, like my Saturn return was getting a promotion in my job, so becoming like a coordinator, buying an apartment, and getting pregnant at the same time within a year. Yeah,
Yeah,
so
wow.
it was like, okay, wow, we've really got to grow up. That's really what it's about. It's like, here is like, you have to be responsible, because
Yeah.
Saturn is about responsibility, and it's like the true adult at that time.
Yeah, wow. That's
Yeah.
very insightful.
You've got that to look forward to,
Yeah.
I suppose. Yeah.
Yeah, one more
Is
year.
one more year. Yeah. So I was gonna say it's not currently. Um, because the current one is Saturn in Pisces, which is so I suppose, you have a little bit of time, a
Yeah.
little bit of time to no, but it's not scary. It's just, I think if you already been on a spiritual awakening and following your intuition and being guided, that it's not going to be as jolting.
Yeah, I look forward to these types of things. I had my spiritual awakening, I would say, 3 years ago. Just at the start of COVID, I started going to meditation and breathwork retreats. And through going through those experiences, I had loads of awakenings. Now, 3.5 years later, now I'm very excited for things to arise and for new things to happen, whether they
Mm.
are challenging or not, because I see it as like it's adventurous.
Yes, yes.
Yeah.
And that's how it should be, because we don't want to catastrophize and go, oh my gosh, like I'm not going to be able to handle it. It's just that sense of, oh, this is going to be a growth time, and it is all happening for me. But of course, if we're a little bit aware, we can somewhat prepare ourselves, because we are still humans living a human life. And yeah, we're always going to have those things that could potentially jolt us or hijack us from, I suppose, staying on the path of being, or I suppose being on, I suppose, in soul purpose, which is like just being fulfilled. There's always going to be actual human stuff that we have to deal with.
Yeah, most definitely. We're
Yeah,
just spiritual beings living the human experience.
yeah, exactly.
And yeah, I'd love to understand more about the chart reading you did of myself. And,
Yeah.
I'll let you explain what this is to the listeners, because I reckon if I do it, I might butcher
Yeah, that's
it.
okay. So I've pretty much spoken about it a lot. So it's just that snapshot at your birth, and it gives us a lot of information about, yeah, like your strengths and your weaknesses, and what you can really focus on to be in more of your power, feeling really excited by life, and being able to serve and help people. So not everyone has that desire to contribute, and some people are just very happy to be in the family life, or just do their career and just focus on a particular thing, and that will show up in your chart. So many Virgo placements that has to be spoken about first. You have your Sun in Virgo, Mercury in Virgo, and North Node in Virgo. And the most important one really is that North Node, which is your purpose. And I absolutely love speaking about this, because it's what you're here to evolve into and really step into, rather than being in your South Node, which is your comfort zone. Comfort and also past lives. So you've perfected it. You're like, okay, I know all the lessons from that. So I could just continue to be in this life, in the safety, in comfort, and continue the same patterns, essentially. Or I can actually go outside of that comfort zone and step more and more into this version of me, which is the North Node. And it's an interesting one, because you have Pisces Virgo, which is Pisces is usually the spiritual placement, and Virgo is being down on earth, physical, practical experiences of helping people.
Yeah.
Pisces is like, let's go into the dreamscape, let's go into the ethereal world, which is, for me, it's like the past lives, it's taboo things, it's like meditation and being kind of almost outside of the body. And so you have this is the polarity that you experience in your life. And we can step more and more into our North Node as we get older, or more and more into it as we find that purpose. But you're not leaving the South Node behind, because your Pisces element is like the dreamer, perhaps the intuitive. Are there any other, I suppose, aspects of Pisces that you resonate with, in terms of like the potential to escape the human experience?
Escape the human experience. I have a really deep urge to be able to get to the most awakened version of myself, whatever that is. Like, I want to be deeply connected to my sense of God or spirit, because I believe there's something bigger in life as well. So I feel like a lot of my mission is towards doing a lot of love, a lot of good, to make an impact in the world, but to also do good for my spirit, in a sense,
Yeah.
because I know this life right now is only temporary. So I want to do my best in fulfilling what I feel like my mission is. So my next life is going to be better.
Yes, and that really speaks to the past life evolution journey, which is Ainsley MacLeod. He speaks about this a lot, that there are levels. And so we come into this incarnation and we may, you may be on level 7, which is I must serve. Level 10 is being a Buddha and going, it is only about enlightenment and nothing else, So you're kind of been pulled into this existence. Like, I have to make it count.
I've had this experience recently, and probably about 3 years ago, 3.5 years ago, is when I first started like being more spiritual and meditation and deep into like enlightenment, if you would say. But about 8 weeks ago, maybe 10 weeks ago, I woke up one day and I felt like God was calling me. And prior to this calling from God, I was never spiritual. None of my family has been, never been to church. I've never done anything like that. But I woke up one day with a sense of God calling me. And I was so confused on what this was. So I just left it for 2 weeks. But over this 2 week period, I kept getting like messages dropped to me. I was like, this is just so strange. So then I called up the pastor from a local church and spoke to him. And everything he said to me just made sense. And he invited me to church. And then ever since then, I've been trying to connect to this calling of God or what God is. And I feel like this journey I've been in the last 3 years is getting me to where I am now, to connect with God in whatever God may be.
Yes, and I think that really resonates with your chart because you have a lot of placements in the 12th house. 12th house is Pisces. And so you are very at home in understanding spiritual concepts, going into the deeper meaning of life. And my, I suppose, experience is very similar. I don't come from a religious background, but I know that there is a creator, and I do tap into source energy and receive insight from that. But it's for me, it's much more than God, and it's a difficult concept to really fully embody or experience because we are mere humans.
Yeah.
but I see that in your chart because it's 12th house in your sun, which is your identity, and in your north node of like stepping into spiritual purpose. But it has to be grounded in reality, and you are a bridge between the spiritual realms and earth and human interaction, and actually giving this insight that you may receive to the people through building community. And
that makes sense to me.
Yeah. And it's very similar for me because I have these Virgo placements, but also strong spiritual placements. And that's usually 8th house, 12th house. So the houses do really matter because it gives us these focus points. So if we just look at Virgo, we see that that is actually about being really practical, productive, ambitious, which is probably why our previous careers maybe served us in that way, because we were very good at it, but we were missing the spiritual connection. Yeah.
When you said bridge then as well, that's literally put it into words how I felt. Like I've got this spiritual side to me, but I'm very much a people person at the same time as well. I feel like I have been connecting those two or finding a way to be able to get those two connect, because I'm very big on like intuition, deep connection. I'm very much so when I speak to people, like straight away, I like to have deep conversations. Even sometimes people will say to me, like, you've got a podcast, don't you? I'm like, yeah, like I can tell the questions you're asking me. But like I like to deeply get to know people.
Yes, because you do have your Venus in Scorpio and Mars in Scorpio. So that is about deep one-to-one conversation, which is also why it appeals to me because I also have Scorpio. So we do have very similar charts in the sense of you have also a lot of air, which is Libra, Aquarius, and that is speaking and being progressive and innovative and finding new ways, to be, to Yeah, like, and actually to help other people, because you're essentially a role model of being in difference, is like, you know, finding a different way to be, and yeah, leading from that example.
Yeah, well.
Yeah, so cool. Yeah, because
There's
you have three Aquarius placements, which is Moon, Jupiter, and Uranus. So how you actually create change, how you receive like luck and opportunity, and who you are at your core is that Aquarian, yeah, the progressive innovator, being a different, but actually inspiring other people that you can live a different life, a
that's
different
exact
way of being. Yeah.
that's exactly me, honestly, because like I'm big progress, like every single day I want to progress, I want to get better. But I don't see it as a way for myself to become the ultimate version either. I see it more so I can be the ultimate version, like you said, so I'm a role model to other people.
Yes, because it's about humanity.
Mm.
Aquarius energy is, I will be the role model, but it's always for the cause, it's for other people. And then you add the Virgo on top, that is wanting to help. So it's, you are the bridge, you're helping people to rise, to see what is, you know, how they can evolve too. And I think you're also here to, you know, draw from that insight from the spiritual realms, whatever way that that is accessed, and help people through, yeah, filtering it out to the masses. Podcast.
Podcast, exactly.
Yeah. Amazing, amazing. But see, not, you know, not everyone is living in their purpose. And, you know, so we look at your chart, and I can see the patterns. I can analyze it, because it's ringing so true for you.
And that it makes sense because like I do a lot of hours during the week, like what people would consider work. And people ask me like, how do you not burn out? Like, so I've been doing what I do for about 5 years. I'm like, because everything I do, I don't feel like I'm working. Like I know that's like a cliche saying, but
Yeah.
like I truly feel like every little thing I do lights me up to the core. Like doing this podcast or doing like youth work or doing events or community
Mm.
stuff, like everything that I do just feels like it just comes natural to me. But on the
Yeah.
step by step is progression on top of that too.
Yes. And so imagine if we lived in a world where everyone was doing that.
How amazing would that be?
Yeah, like incredible. And it's where we want to be. But we have a little bit of work to do. But it's definitely very helpful to be going first and being courageous and listening to intuition, because that's where it really comes from, is like, who am I really? How can I, yes, maybe lean on some tools to understand myself, so that I truly can be living in that space of like, it's not really work, it's just what I'm meant to be doing.
Talking about courageous as well, is there certain principles that you live by specifically, like for yourself? Like, do you reflect on the day and you want to live by certain principles or values?
Yeah, I like that question. I think I've changed what those values are
Mm,
over the time, over the last 3 years. And I think now it's just about, for me, it's about balance,
mm.
and more presence, and more joy,
Yeah.
and light, and maintaining that, um, more consistently, I would say,
Mm,
because we can really feel, I suppose we can be easily jolted, or I like to kind of say that we're kind of almost hijacked or taken down into the drama or the conflict or the potential kind of human stuff.
mm.
And so, yeah, my value is just to continue to have balance. But of course, it is also, I want to be of service. And part of my mission is to help people. So if that's part of my balance. Yeah.
You mentioned the joy. It reminded me of a post that I saw on your Instagram. And I believe you wrote in one of the sentences on the post was, how often do you laugh till your face creases? And
Yeah.
I want to ask, like saying joy, and then also saying that about laughter. Why do you believe that's so important to you? Or
Yes,
so
because
important to the world, should I
to
say?
the world. I mean, well, it is. It's just, it's a natural joy that is, so, I don't know. It's just like the natural essence of who we should be, but we're all very busy. Busy, busy, busy.
Yeah.
And then we don't really just stop and smell the roses, as much as that's cliche. It's those kind of joyful, you know, appreciative, like when you're in full gratitude. That's, I suppose, what those moments are, those glimpses.
And
How could we do that more often? Like,
yeah.
Yeah.
Some of the best times in life when we reflect on were those times when we had like those belly laughs, like those belly aching laughs where we're just completely happy with joy.
Yeah. Yeah.
And before we finish up here, I've got one question for you. What do you believe? And this is not, because I know this may get misconstrued with the word success. So it's just whatever success means to you and what you have identified it as. But what do you believe has been the most important goal you've achieved? And who was you before and after that?
Mm. Yes, my version of success is probably quite different to others. Um, but that has also shifted over the period of my life. But I think my greatest success is definitely being a mother and having that child and
Beautiful.
going through all those experiences, and that's really part of my mission. Is I want to have more time for my son. And, when I first started my coaching certification, I openly said to the whole, group of women, I just want to be able to drop my son at school and pick him up. And of course, that's a lifestyle choice, but it's so much more than that.
Yeah.
And so, yes, that is my biggest, most important role. And that's why I want to, I suppose, inspire him that he can do whatever he wants to do, and be inspired by hobbies and whatever lights him up, that he can follow that path of just trusting the intuition and doing what is his purpose, rather than, I suppose, the materialistic kind of, we have to go to university, we have to make money, we have to find a career, and we do that for the rest of our life. It's not something that I want him to feel boxed in by.
And for yourself, like on a personal note, before and after you became a mother, what do you feel like was the most crucial lesson you learned about yourself?
Being more present and more patient, and I suppose appreciating the small things, like the real things that are heart-centered. Yeah. And love, and how it's just, my gosh, you don't realize just how much love you can have for somebody.
Pure love.
It's very pure love, very protective, very like raw, which is amazing.
Do you have any final words you'd like to share here before we finish up as well?
No, I suppose it's just a reminder for everyone to reflect on, I suppose, utilizing the tools that you can get from external, like astrology or whatever it is that really resonates with you. I would always suggest to follow the breadcrumbs, because it's not really about the tool. It's about the little light bulb moment that will inspire you, and you follow it, and then you follow the next one, and then the next one. And that's the magic. And you are definitely your own wise guide. You have all the power, you have the insight, but it's just developing that trust so you can get to that point.
Amazing. Thank you for jumping on today, Anna. I appreciate your time. Appreciate you coming on and sharing your wisdom as well. And also doing my chart too. I appreciate you taking the time to do that.
Thank you so much for having me. It was lots of fun.
No worries at all.
Thank you.
And I'll link everything in the bio as well. So if you want to find Anna, jump in the bio of this episode. You can find all the links there. But Cheers for listening, everyone. See you later.